I'm a fifth generation small business owner. My family came here at the beginning of the Holocaust to Holyoke, and one of my great great grandfathers used to drive a fruit truck from Holyoke over the mountain into East Hampton every day. And so I grew up in a small business where people use their hands and were making things. I started what people would now call wild crafting as a really small child. We used to go places and wrap wreaths, or we'd collect stones and shells at the beach and put them in jars, or every year we'd get princess pine out of the forest and wrap our own garlands at home. And my favorite part was that, like, someone would fall in love with something, we'd talk about why I made it, and then it was theirs. It was no longer mine, and it was not just transactional, but really it was like almost like adoption. You're like passing something to go on to its next life with someone. And that's more authentic. There's more connection there. I want things to feel like you can touch them. I want people to actually create their own personal connection. We get a lot of compliments on how the store looks and how it feels, also how it smells. People like that the fact that there's not chemicals in our candles. And a lot of people just here for the energy bump or a refresh. It's a reverence for spaces that we belong and places we want to be. That is the easiest way to spiritually connect.
Hello, it's Donnabelle, your friend and host of To Hum is Human, the podcast where we explore the transformative power of tuning into our intuition to express our passionate purpose. In today's episode, Wild Women, Wise Hands, Crafting Healing Through Generations, we're stepping into a space where magic feels tangible, where every herb, stone, and crafted piece carries a story. I think you're going to love my next guest. For over 25 years, Mischa Roy has been an entrepreneur, artist, and holistic healer, blending commerce with connection through intuitive, heart-led work. As the owner and CEO of Spill the Teasist Apothecary in Northampton, Massachusetts, she's created a beloved community hub that's won Best Gift Shop in the Valley in Valley Advocates Best of the Valley 3 years running, a master tea blender, level 3 Reiki master teacher, and a lifelong student of metaphysical traditions from herbalism and plant spirit medicine to candle magic, folk magic, and shamanic journey work. Mischa personally curates an herbal apothecary of over 200 items. She's the artist behind hand-wrapped sage bundles, handcrafted jewelry, and ritual tools, and the heart behind monthly full moon gatherings, as well as annual Beltane and Samhain celebrations. In 2024, she was named one of Business West's 40 Under 40 for her leadership and community impact. In this conversation, we'll explore what it means to craft healing with your hands, to build a business that's truly a community, and to carry forward the wild, wise energy of the women who came before us. Welcome, Mischa.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat about, all things magic and intuition.
Well, and I love that we're speaking in your actual space, and I can hear the buzz around you of all the beautiful things happening in your shop as we're speaking. So it's kind of a nice injection of that energy into our conversation.
Uh,
Now, Mischa, your journey with Spill the Teasist Apothecary is deeply rooted in your family's own healing path. Can you take us back to that pivotal time when a childhood illness led you to seek more than what Western medicine had to offer?
yeah, I'm going to bring us to the Wayback Machine. We're going to go back to 1986. When I was about 6 months old, I got the live cell DPT vaccination and had a pretty intense reaction. Actually, my batch and lot number was known for reactions, which you can't know until afterwards, and had pretty aggressive reaction that resulted in epilepsy and a seizure condition. He tells the story as going from having a perfectly healthy baby to instantly overnight having a very sick child. And it took until I was about 2.5 to 3 to get a full diagnosis of epilepsy as I was actively seizing. Until I was about 12, I had anywhere between 10 and 15 seizures a day. So it was a pretty intense and active seizure condition. So the most logical path when traditional Western medicine really was failing us was to get me on a lot of treatment tables. And so we started with things like craniosacral and lymph dressage, and also did many rounds of Chinese medicine, which back then was not in a capsule and is very hard to convince a child to consume. And now I still really rely on treatment tables.
This illness actually started to become an entry point for you into spiritual work.
So that's the thing that's very interesting about the brain, right? Is that anything that comes back to epilepsy or seizure disorder or something where there's like misfiring or the wiring's not right means that in essence, we're still talking about energy. And so that misfiring is all this energetic stuff that happens in your spinal cord. And it also opens up different pathways of your brain in a way they weren't designed or initially ready to operate. And so I do feel like the epilepsy really created space. I'm highly intuitive, um, especially when it comes to like creative intuition. So what to put next to somewhere. That's part of the reason the store is displayed like this is I'm constantly thinking from that creative perspective. And I do attribute a lot of that just back to the brain and the fact that the brain is limitless. We are the limit.
You know, now, growing up, you've had generations of women who have really influenced how you run your business to some degree, but what you offer in your business. Can you speak about that?
I'm a fifth generation small business owner. My family came here at the beginning of the Holocaust to Holyoke, and one of my great great grandfathers used to drive a fruit truck from Holyoke over the mountain into East Hampton every day. And so I'm actually a fifth generation. And so I grew up in a small business where people use their hands and were making things. My father was a photographer. My mother sold his work. And I'm sure most of you have seen it. It was every Friendly's menu and Yankee Candle original piece of commercial photography. So I grew up in a studio as a young child where, you'd go there on a day off and you'd go to one room and someone's working on a photo, in the next room someone's invoicing, and then in the next area it's the lab and they're printing artwork, and somewhere else someone's cataloging props and supplies. And so grew up with people actually working to create things, to create vision, to create where they wanted to go, and a lot of people who got to be a part of that small business. They had a staff of 8 to 12 depending on the timeline. And I don't think I had any sense that they were staff. Like, I just assumed it was a lot of family, and I think that's how they chose to raise us. Um, and that's definitely informed the way I've tried to staff, the way we try to work with people. It has really informed the way I think about the products we bring in. We make over 40% of the store. And I was actually reflecting on this, getting ready for our interview is, I started what people would now call wild crafting as a really small child. We used to go places and wrap wreaths, or we'd collect stones and shells at the beach and put them in jars, or every year we get princess pine out of the forest and wrap our own garlands at home. So to me, like, some of these things we make with our hand are second nature. And until I'm training someone or teaching someone about how to do it, I don't realize the knowledge is extensive because it's been small bits of knowledge over time and over generations. That's why I'm so comfortable with like picking up any herb and figuring out how to make it into a bundle.
How has your family's history influenced your approach to that craftsmanship quality and sustainability? Because you grow your own herbs and you have your own farm in Whaley.
We started growing our own herbs out of necessity. So I really liked blending tea and making things with honeysuckle, which the kind I'd like to work with is like $150 a pound. It's just not sustainable. What we're growing here in the States is not something that's being easily sold. And so we started with honeysuckle in two colors, and now we have a full garden. And I grow things that I love the smell of, like we grow a lot of Tulsi because I just love Tulsi. We grow a lot of bee balm. It's another thing that's really hard to source. So we grow it in hot pink and red and purple. We grow our own peaches and cherries, blueberries, and black raspberries on the farm. And so I dry a lot of those for tea. Or we'll, to really help the tree, pull the peach blossoms back and dry those, which can be used for tea and lots of other stuff.
Are there some things that are special just for you, or do you include all of the aspects there?
The apothecary has about 200 different items in it. And when people come in, I do try to be very direct about the fact that we are a metaphysical apothecary and not medicinal. Depending on staff at the time, besides for me, I don't know that anyone else has as extensive an herbal knowledge. And we like to be really authentic about that. From a medicinal perspective, there are 5 or 6 things that I'm comfortable suggesting to anyone for some basic things like cold, sore throat, basic hormonal. People are desperately seeking healing and have these really wild thoughts about what buying $4 of lavender is going to do. And my liability insurance only goes so far, and my personal integrity and liability has a line. And so we've been very clear, especially in the training of our staff, about what that line looks like and how to still give people a great experience and help them find the right thing without promising things that we can never genuinely promise.
You've said that access to spirit is one of the most basic foundations we all deserve. What does that look like in practice at Spill the Thesis?
So in practice, it means like having open dialogue that's not performative and also, is not glorifying things like witch talk and really isn't about gatekeeping. And on some level, isn't just about spiritual practice, but is about historical use, especially for folk magic. Because in the area that we live in, a lot of people identify with spirituality that looks like paganism. We grow up and we live here in a gorgeous place. And so understanding the magic of pine trees and the moon and the mountains you're walking and the Connecticut River is very obvious because it's in your face. I mean, it's hard to stare at how gorgeous this place is and not realize that like you're standing in something that's earth magic. And so for me, a lot of it is helping curate a space where we can talk about things authentically, where magic is not like go find this guy in the woods, he has a goat, he's going to take you on a journey 7 steps, you have to rub this egg on a feather. Like that's nonsense and that's on social media and that's in cinema, but that's not like real practical magic and ritual is that like I have some time every day to call in my deities and I'm lucky if I'm not doing that in the shower. So making that connection for people it's part of the reason that candle magic is so close to my heart is that it's very accessible. If you have a candle and it's sitting there and you have 2 hours while you make dinner to at least have clear head, the candle is really just a place to leave that intention and to leave the focus for the intention when life is so chaotic and busy. It's a lot of noise.
It doesn't have to be a lengthy, laborious process. And I love that you say it's just lighting a simple candle is enough.
Um, Practical magic and real ritual. And real ritual is whatever you have access to, whatever you make it, whatever you feel called to. It's not what you're seeing online, especially now. So much has changed. And when I first started studying, I was like sitting in rooms with people who were actually teaching us something, and then you could pick up their book at Beyond Words. And now the internet, social media, AI, all of that has really changed the landscape and also made it harder to figure out where the real information is.
I'd love to go to the naming of your shop. Spill the Thesis. What does that mean to you?
So for me, it's community and connection. And it really is like a if you know, you know. So I'm someone who's been part of the queer community for a really long time. And Spill the Thesis comes from queer culture. It comes from the ballroom scene in the 1980s and at the start of the AIDS epidemic. And it really was language that we were all using. And if you heard someone say something that's the right language, you often feel comfortable. And so the hope with our name is always that like a lot of people walk in, they go, I love this name and I knew I'd love it here. And that's the goal. The goal is if we're your vibe and we're your people, we want it to speak to you. It's something that lives in intersectionality. It really lives in queer space, but it also lives in other cultures too. And I think they all have to have a seat at the table together.
I love that Spill the Thesis is a community hub now. You host monthly events like the full moon rituals and seasonal celebrations like Beltane and Samhain. How have these events shaped your relationship with your customers or your town?
It definitely has created things that I didn't expect. So we're officially on our 4th year of full moon. We just July was the start of our 4th year of going all the way around, which is wild. We don't know a lot of spaces that have been consistently hosting for that long. And regardless of what it looks like, whether it's 20 people or 100, we're there. And honestly, I would say a normal month is 30 to 50. I would say a high holiday is like 100, 75 to 100. Our biggest every year is actually Samhain, which we do live on the street. We build an altar publicly on the street, which sometimes feels wild and a little dangerous, depending on I mean, it's better now, but the first time it was pretty scary. And people bring pictures of their loved ones, and we help them connect and make space so that they can honor that. And for me, the veil is so thin and magic is like literally at our fingertips. I think honoring that space, it's always one of my favorites every year. There was an insanely wild hype the first 6 months we did it. We were coming off of COVID. We were a brand new store opening in Northampton when no one was willing to take a chance on it. And so I remember, our space was so small, our capacity was like 25. And I remember one of our first full moons was like 130 people were out the door. Wild, just totally wild. And now we have a lot of people who are here 3, 4 times a year. Their schedule changes. Now that they know it's consistent, I don't think that that intensity, winter's sometimes a little slower. Fall is always very big for us. Everything from August into Yule, very big. But I think people know it's a consistent place they can come back to, and that's really the goal. The goal is the consistency.
What early life experience taught you that business could also be a space for authentic engagement?
I think it took me a while to feel comfortable there. I think that I did 10 years selling my work on the street, actually being at 30 to 50 art shows a year and meeting people. And my favorite part was that like someone would fall in love with something, we'd talk about why I made it, and then it was theirs. It was no longer mine. And it was not just transactional, but really it was like almost like adoption. You're like passing something to go on to its next life with someone. And that's more authentic, there's more connection there than just, like, the buying and selling of goods. And so, I have a very different relationship with a lot of my customers. A lot of my customers work through things together. We're not doing one thing, we're talking about a journey, and I think that's actually my favorite part. My favorite part is the bearing witness. So, there are customers who have been with us since the day we opened or before we opened, and we've watched them find new love or live in different places or accomplish things they really wanted to accomplish, and I think that's actually my favorite.
It's like they really want to share that part of themselves and that transformation.
Well, that's really the connection. I mean, the real connection, and for me, the real manifestation. We talk a big game about intention, magic, and manifestation, and there are now these not just big words, but big categories, right? And big things to be sold. And the reality is, the basis of all magic is abracadabra. I speak, therefore I am. And so when we're like sharing at full moon circle, and then in 2 months, the progress is seen by the people around you, they're bearing witness to your journey. They're bearing witness to the fruit of your labors. And it's really hard sometimes in the day to day for us to see that. And so when someone can help us keep that perspective, it really helps us keep on the path to really bringing it to fruition, which is the hard part. The hard part is staying the course and waiting for divine timing, which is not our human timing.
Your time with your mom influenced your approach to healing art and community or other family members. Could you speak about that?
Well, definitely. So my dad is really where the folk magic comes from. My dad is Jewish. His family came over during the very beginnings of the Holocaust because of what was going on in the country at that time. We don't know if we're Russian or Czechoslovakian. So it really is like European folk magic. That is what that comes back to. And the more I understand, the more I've studied, almost all
Mm.
magic that comes back to where we come from comes back to the home and hearth. I mean, his love of cooking, the sense that, like, anyone you love you can feed, and that's magic. That's part of that. My dad used to say he really liked being Jewish for the food, and he took that insanely seriously. I meet a little more Jewish mysticism in my practice, but he really was there for the food and the community, and I do think that's a way we serve people, that's a way we connect to people, it's a way we heal. And my mom came from a totally different place. So, my mom's family is 50% Italian. My grandmother came over on a cruise liner, um, and was 100% Italian, and so we had very strong Italian Strega roots, and we know where we come from. We still have land in Italy on that side of the family. My mom's dad lived in a totally different place. So his family actually was French Canadian. It took us a long time to get to the bottom of that because French Canadian meant we were also Native American and part of the expulsion. And so, um, great great grandfather and his brother came down as part of the Canadian expulsion, and half of them settled in New Orleans and half of them settled in Hartford. And there's pictures of the family on the farm in Hartford. Great grandpa was Wilfred. Wilfred was with his wife Anastasia. Anastasia is 100% Native American. And the kids are just like the color bleeds out in the photo of the whole family, right? Because that was the freedom they came here to America for.
I feel that those roots carry strongly now, even because there are people in your family working with you in the shop. Is that correct?
Yeah. So my husband works here with me and he runs our candle department now because when we were pouring a few candles, it was great that I poured them all. But now we have a whole staff and networking and social media and events to run, and that's not real. So my husband runs the candle department and he lives very much in a space of like Celtic Irish magic, which is funny because some of my favorite herbs to work with and that I grew before I met him were very Celtic and Irish, even though I have no connection. But I'm a huge fan of heather and thyme, and we stock both of them all the time because they really are traditional and thistle. I love, love, love thistle. Traditional Celtic Irish folk magic, Scottish folk magic. My mom is with us less now and is doing more of the gardening and being at home. And honestly, she deserves to be retired. She's a retired CFO. But when we started, she was here a lot more. And now she's here a little less. But when she does come in, my favorite part is that like she ran an entire team and the finance for an entire operation. And sometimes someone will ask her something that she doesn't want to deal with. And her answer is, man, you should go find the big boss.
It's kinda nice to have that option.
I think she really likes it. I don't really enjoy it, especially because a lot of times it's stuff she knows the answer to. She just doesn't wanna, you know. So, but it's good. I mean, part of the reason she was dealing with a lot of grief, and part of the reason we had her come to the shop is it just got her with people. And we actually have this small mailing list of, widows that have walked through the door. And every time they come, then we have like a starter list of talk to this reverend who's a grief specialist. Here's my mom's number. There's also this really nice, like little old lady grief group up north. And so we get them in touch with that. And it's kind of become a special place that people walk in for that, even though it wasn't like something we expected. And then when we're lucky, about half of the year, my stepson, who's 19, is with us.
There's something to that legacy of continuing the tradition of being a business owner, going back so many generations.
Every night he took the summer off and he actually is at the carnival in Maine, traveling around New England at a carnival and selling darts to people. And he called me the other day and he said, I really sold the most at a game this weekend. And I'm not going to tell them it's because of my mom. Like, my mom told me to sell stuff. I'm just going to take the win.
You create so many of the items in your shop, from handcraft jewelry, ritual tools, and teas. What's your creative process like, and how does your intuition show up in it?
So I think it's a mixed bag. I think some of it's intuition and also some of it's like business acumen. Uh, you know, I never intended to make jewelry. And I laugh because when my mom and I used to work at art shows and I would be like selling artwork, which is not the easiest sell, right? Even if we had good weekends, it still wasn't as easy. And we would see people selling jewelry and candles. And she went, man, if someday we sold jewelry and candles, now we sell jewelry and candles. But I didn't seek out, and my plan was not to start selling jewelry. Like Northampton already has a lot of jewelry, but because we carry really interesting and unique stones, our customers had an expectation that the jewelry would be more than like labradorite and moonstone and amethyst. And so in Northampton, there's really a financial gap between picking up $28 necklace or studs for your friend and then having to go down to one of the people in the neighborhood who sells like $500 jewelry or someone who sells $1,000 to $5,000 jewelry. There's kind of no middle. And so it started out of like, a business problem that needs a solution. So they already source stone really well. So how do we figure out how to source drilled stone well? And how do we figure out like there is this clear and evident hole in the market? So what are we going to do with it? And that's how we started with our jewelry. I had already made like some very light jewelry when we started. Since then, I've really learned to wire wrap and we stock silver and gold now. And at any given time, there's like 40 different kinds of stone in our jewelry because I wanted something different.
When you walk into Spill the Thesis, it just has a very different vibe. Like you go in and your signature is in there everywhere. Not just your products, but the feeling that you bring. When someone walks into Spill the Thesis, what's the first thing you would hope to have them feel when they come in?
Well, the first thing we want is for them to meet things authentically. I've been in retail a really long time, and there are so many ways in which we are setting people up to buy things. That is part of the nature of retail. And so I've always wanted it to be really authentic. I want things to feel like you can touch them. I want it to feel like you can get to know them personally. I
Mm.
want the stones to be in a way where you can like eye or hand scan and see who you want to meet. I want people to actually touch things and feel things and create their own personal connection, not just like the sales pitch we gave them, because that's not really the answer. I mean, my staff are literally trained to tell you when you're not sure what candle to buy, like we pour them with intention. So what smells right to you, because that's the authentic part. We're setting the stage. Now you're supposed to create your own authentic connection. And that, I think that comes through a lot. We get a lot of compliments on how the store looks and how it feels, the feel a lot, also how it smells. People like that the fact that there's not chemicals in our candles does make a big difference to how people interact with them. And a lot of people just like to come here for the energy bump or a refresh. A lot of people who work in town do that. They come take a spin and they're like, look at a purse they're eyeballing for the next sale and might snag a candle, but they need the fresh air.
Now, I love that you are a master tea blender. What does that entail? And is there a signature tea that seems to sort of sell
Mhm.
itself off the shelf?
I'd say that we have 2 or 3 blends that we've always made, a Practical Magic, which is a black, Goddess Blend, which is a green, and people love chai so much. It's like the tea really finds the right person. But for me, it's because I kinda learned from different spaces. So I did learn from the herbal approach and also herbal metaphysically, which is very different than herbal medicinally or like an herbalism angle. And then I learned from a chef how we blend tea for flavor. And that is where I think a lot of people get lost is they are so concerned about it being medicinal that we forget that people don't use prescriptions that don't taste good or that are hard to do or don't naturally fit in their life. And so for me, we have to hit all 3 of those every time we make tea. It has to taste good, the flavors have to interact and the herbs have to interact well. There has to be a purpose to why we've blended it. We have an original 24 intentions, and those really are meant to make any intention magic accessible. That's the goal. And what'll happen is from time to time, 1 or 2 of them will stop pouring as much, or they're not in favor as much, and we'll replace them. Or something will do so well seasonally, we can't get rid of it now because people love it so much. So that's kind of a mixed process. Sometimes, especially with the original line, there is a missing vibe hole or scent hole. And so we actually pick the fragrance oil and then have to turn it into a full blooded blend, not just a candle, but from every aspect the color of the wax, the way we're blending it, the scents, layering scents sometimes, the toppings, and then the label, which means all 4 or 5 aspects have to be headed to the same goal, right? Then on the other hand, sometimes there's like a really crazy idea or there feels like there's a need. Like one of our customer favorites is called Ritual. It's a frankincense and myrrh. It's old magic. It really smells like old magic. And it's really the idea of that candle is to set the tone for anyone. So, like, if you need to have ritual space, but our original stuff doesn't hit, ritual will set the tone. It doesn't matter if you're trying to celebrate turning the wheel, it doesn't matter if you're doing specific intention work. Ritual will set the tone for any ritual space. And so, some of those come out of request or need or space in our catalog that we know could do better, that we know people want a little more.
Are there particular ones that seem to hit people
Yeah.
the most?
Anything with the word bitch sells. People love it. Which is funny because our first candle ever is Own It Bitch, and it's still a bestseller. Some things just resonate because they resonate hard, so we have a The Bridges You Burn candle, we have a Soothe Your Soul, we have I'm My Own Sugar Mama, we have Magic of New Beginnings. All of those just connect really well. And then some other that are, like, a little funny and sassier, like, Go Smudge Yourself is a fan favorite. All the tarot candles really find a home well. And we also do a, like, memorial cardinal candle called Angels Are Near When Cardinals Appear, and that's always been a winner. The more authentic connection in it, the more it's relatable. We're people, and people have the same experience even if they aren't willing to acknowledge how similar we are. But the similarity is all that we're really people, and we're just trying to walk through this. And so I think those themes with the repetition is really where people keep connecting authentically.
Now, Spill the Teasist Apothecary has won Best Gift Shop 3 years running. In 2024, you were honored in the 40 under 40. How do you balance growth and recognition with staying rooted in your value?
I find it all really crazy. It's no matter how great it is or how well we've done, I guess it's still the meter and the bar that I'm holding here as I'm looking at what we're doing. I never feel like we've done enough. I always feel like there's more for us to do. I live in that overachiever space, which is, it is what it is. At this point, I've accepted it at almost 40. But I don't know that I ever feel like, wow, we've made it. And what I realize is anytime something's accomplished, the reality is the bar just gets higher or the goal just gets bigger. It's not that we did it. I mean, when we realized we were in 100 retail stores, it was like really cool. And then it was like, okay, what's next? Like my husband and my mom both like really want to relish in success. And my brain automatically goes to where do we go now? So what's the next thing? Like, this was great. We've proven it works. So how do we do it 25% harder? How do we do it 25% bigger? What makes it more exciting? What's flashier? How do we make this nonsense sale we run every year sound even more nonsense so people want to be here even more? Like, that's how my brain works. Is I definitely wish I was better at paperwork because we could use that too. But what I'm really good at is that like wild growth, big idea to back up the information so we can make it happen.
Definitely something about keeping things really fresh and ahead of the curve. I feel like a strong business person has that innate sense about them because that's what keeps you motivated. Not just the actual business, but you as a keep it interesting for yourself, I imagine.
And the 40 under 40 was insanely unexpected. I mean, most of the time they don't nominate retailers. It's just not what they're doing. They want community engagement. They want people to really be invested. And I think it's the community engagement that run that and not the retail store, but actually the leveraging and we've worked really hard to bring people back to Main Street. We want people to have a reason to come to Northampton. We do events like the Biggie and give out 20,000 flyers that remind people why they should come back to Northampton. So we're just as invested in Northampton as we are in ourselves. And that has been a key to that growth and the relationship I have with the chamber and the DNA in the city. And that's how we're able to run some of the events that we run. We run the Sunday Block Party, which is 6 times a year, one Sunday a month from May to October. We get artists on the street, about 30 to 50 artists every Sunday. And my new project called the Great Northampton Haunt that I'm doing with Isaac from Familiars. So we're taking on the joy that you find in Salem and attempting to turn Northampton into Halloween Town for 31 days. It starts this year, October 2nd is our first day, and we go until November 2nd because this year Halloween's on a Friday. And every weekend is a market, just like in Salem, with live performers on the street. So it's a Halloween market. Different businesses around town are participating in a Friday event called Fright Bite Friday. So you can get fall and Halloween themed food at all of the businesses in Northampton. We've got some family friendly events. We've got on top of it, a listing of it's called thegreatnorthamptonhaunt.com, and there's a listing as well there. People are starting to put in their event all over Western Mass. So there's an official Northampton calendar and also a hub for any business. So if you want to come here and let's say you're in Southampton, but you want to check out what East Hampton to Greenfield looks like, you can actually like make your own map of the 4 or 5 spaces that you're going to. And we're only able to do it with support from the city and the chamber and the DNA. And obviously, Isaac and I are all in. Familiars, Isaac and Danny over at Familiars and the Pie Bar are just amazing humans. We talk a big game about economic development and business development, but imagine if we all could work together to create a tourism lift and actually do it.
I'm already getting chills about it. I'm feeling really good about it. I'm I'm excited. Now, making spirituality accessible is at the heart of your mission. What are some of the simplest, most practical ways people can bring magic into their everyday life?
I think we don't give enough to the idea that altar space exists in all our homes. So, everyone who I ever talk to can think of a great auntie or a grandma who had like one saint or their favorite vintage bell and some nonsense on a counter. So that is a very practical way. I mean, even if it's just some stones and shells you got on vacation in a dish, it's a reverence for spaces that we belong and places we want to be. And that is the easiest way to spiritually connect. The other thing that I really do think is like very easy and practical is the way you clean. So, what you're wiping your house down with, if you're actually salting corners and thinking about what keeps your house feeling clean and protected. If you ever need to change the energy in a room, sweep everything out of it. It's home cleaning practice, but most home cleaning practices come back to folk magic. They all are one and the same.
I wondered if you would ever teach some of these concepts to people who would be curious.
We we constantly talk about it and we have attempted to launch classes 3 times and the store keeps us so busy that sometimes it's very hard to make enough of us for that to happen. We had a whole class schedule this summer and then realized we're like 4 weeks out from the biggie, which puts me in a field for 30 days. So that juggle is always hard. And I feel like having a personal life, having space for the things we want to do, all of that gets very hard here. And that is the thing I think is hardest in general about this. And the last thing that I suggest people do is really intentionally cook for your family. Think about the things you're feeding them. Think about the quality of the things you're feeding them. Do it with love and not annoyance. That is a really easy way to have intentional space in your life without it feeling performative. It really
I
does
feel
make a difference.
it just tastes different.
And it's very traditional way to connect to your roots. I mean, wherever you come from, however you grew up at the table, having that kind of practice and ritual, talking about a high and low for the day or talking about how your day went, that kind of share of information is real traditional storytelling, oral tradition in action now. It doesn't look as cool as it did when we were like tribes in the woods by a campfire.
Misha, how can people connect with you? Your shop, your blends, join your community ritual spaces?
Well, you can come see us a million ways. One, you can find us at spilltheteasist.com. The website's there. There's all the products there. Number two, we have Facebook and Instagram. It's all Spill the Teasist Apothecary. We have all of our events listed on there. You can come see us at the Sunday Block Party. You can check us out at the Great Northampton Haunt. They're both events that are totally run, financed, and produced by Spill the Tea, and are the way that we're really able to invest back in our community. And you can just come down to the shop. We're at 177 Main Street in between Pinch Pottery and the Old Faces.
Mischa Roy, thank you for reminding us that healing is as much about connection as it is about craft. And that's when we honor where we come from and open the table to everyone. Our magic only grows stronger that way. And I love how your story reminds us that it doesn't have to be grand or complicated. It can be as simple as a cup of tea brewed with intention, a ritual shared under the moon, or a handcrafted item infused with love. Thank you so much for sharing your story today and all the things you do to help bring people together at the same table. Thanks for being here. I hope something from today's conversation stayed with you or gave you a new way to look at things. That awareness, that pause, that's where things start to shift. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. You can learn more about my work and what's coming up at sonorous.light.com, and you can follow me on Instagram at @tohumishuman. Until next time, keep humming.